At dawn, a farmer stands where yesterday there was dry earth, and the river has quietly moved the border of the world.
The black silt left at his feet looks like mud, but it is the first clue to Egypt's power. And to a harder question, how did this narrow floodplain become a civilization that lasted for more than 3,000 years?
The answer did not begin with pyramids. It began much earlier.
In landscapes tracked by the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, from Paleolithic and Neolithic phases into settled life. Archaeology from Egypt's deep past, including Sinai rock art reported as spanning about 10,000 years.
Shows people hunting, moving, marking places, and slowly learning what the river could offer.
But a river alone does not create a kingdom. So what changed when communities started staying put?
In the Predynastic period, Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities describes early communities developing before political unification, especially along the Nile's dependable corridor.
Farming, storage, pottery, and local leadership turned survival into planning, but planning also created rivalry.
If each village could feed itself, why would any of them accept one ruler? Egypt's great political idea was not simply one land, but the joining of the two lands. Upper Egypt in the south and Lower Egypt in the delta, an idea highlighted in the ministry's Predynastic overview. The double crown became a symbol of unity, but symbols work only when backed by grain, labor, and record-keeping.
The next clue is not a monument. It is a mark made by a reed pen.
Writing and administration helped turn harvests into state power. Fields could be measured, taxes counted, workers organized, and offerings delivered to temples. This is where the black silt from the opening changes meaning. It was not just fertile soil, it was something the state could calculate. But calculation raised a dangerous problem. Who could persuade thousands to build for a ruler they might never meet? The Old Kingdom answered with stone on a scale the world had not seen. Royal tomb complexes, pyramids, causeways, quarries, boats, bread, beer, and organized crews. The pyramids were not random heaps of devotion. They were the visible tip of a machine that could mobilize food, skilled labor, and belief. Yet the stronger that machine became, the more it depended on one fragile rhythm. When Nile floods were low, the system could strain. When central authority weakened, Egypt could fragment into competing powers. Ancient Egyptian history, as outlined by official period timelines, is not a straight climb, but a cycle of consolidation, breakdown, and reunification. So the real surprise is not that Egypt fell into crisis, it is how often it rebuilt itself afterward. After periods of fracture, rulers restored order by returning to the same foundations: control of the Nile Valley, temple networks, scribal administration, and the old language of divine kingship. The Middle Kingdom and later phases show Egypt repeatedly recentering itself around memory as much as power. But then came a turn that pushed Egypt beyond the river's banks. In the New Kingdom, the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities describes Egypt as a major imperial power in the ancient Near East.
Pharaohs projected influence into Nubia and the Levant. Temples grew richer, and diplomacy, war, tribute, and theology stretched the meaning of Egypt itself.
But empires are expensive, and the question became whether a civilization built on balance could survive expansion.
Ancient Egypt endured because it kept turning the Nile cycle into social order, food into surplus, surplus into records, records into labor, labor into monuments, and monuments into a shared memory of the two lands. Its official historical arc runs from pre-dynastic communities through dynasties, kingdoms, foreign rule, and the Roman period, but the pattern begins again with that black line of silt at dawn. What looked like mud was the engine, a river that taught a society how to measure time, command work, and imagine permanence.